Hi, Tyria, and happy Friday. Welcome to Guild Chat. I'm your host, Ruby, and today we're going to be talking about the new Siren's Reef Fractal. We've got a couple of devs here who worked on that. I know we've been talking about the story episode a lot over the past couple of weeks, but I want to make sure that we don't miss out on this awesome new Fractal. So why don't we jump right in? I'll have you guys introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about what you do here at ArenaNet and what you did on this Fractal.
Cool. Hi, I'm Alex Kain. I'm a narrative designer here at ArenaNet, and I was the lead writer on the Siren's Reef Fractal.
I'm Tracey West, and I was the environment artist for the Fractal.
I'm Travis Battig, and I am the QA team for the, well, I am the QA team for the Fractal.
You were, but you still are.
Yes.
It's a little bit of both. So, a quick reminder, as always, our devs will be taking a couple of your questions at the end. So if you have questions, throw them in chat, and we will see how many we have time to get to.
Cool.
So, because you guys are feeling brave.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's get started because I'm actually kind of fascinated by the premise of this entire Fractal because Captain Wayant, how did we get from Wayant's Revenge Jumping Puzzle to this should totally be a Fractal?
So when we started the creative process for the Fractal, everyone on the team gets in a room, and Jason Reynolds, gets up in front of everyone and writes, on a whiteboard.
Yeah, we're just brainstorming, whiteboarding.
Yeah. Just throw out some themes, throw out some ideas. What could what's the tone of this Fractal? What's the theme of this Fractal? What's the stuff that you want to see in this Fractal? And one of the very first things to go up on the whiteboard was just pirate ghosts, and that was it. And there were some other things on the board too.
Those don't matter.
But pirate ghosts kind of stuck around, and like a couple of things would go on the board, and then someone would be like, getting back to pirate ghosts, I really think it'd be cool if we did this. You'd be like, okay, well, we'll do like a little separate thing over here.
But we still have 38 minutes left in this meeting.
Yeah, it was one of those things. Yeah, it was like an hour-long meeting, and 2 minutes in, he's like, all right, it's a pirate ghost, it's good. And then like 5 minutes in, it's like, I think
we fleshed out a good chunk of it just in that one meeting.
Really?
We kept being like, oh, but what if we did this for the setting? And
and eventually, I think it was like halfway through the meeting where we like skipped to the next meeting. He's like, okay, so all right, and he just like circled pirate ghosts and then like created a new thing. He's like, all right, what stuff we could do with pirate ghosts? And it was sort of, it was one of the everyone latched onto it very quickly.
Yeah.
And then after that, I took that pirate ghost idea and I started brainstorming some ideas for how to tie it back into the lore. I brought it to Bobby Stein, who. He reminded me that okay, well, normally we tie it into something in the lore of the Guild Wars universe because fractals take place in the past.
Right.
So what are various pirate related stories that we could tell or we could tap into for this Fractal? And we have a lot of pirates in the Guild Wars universe that we could have dredged up. So
is that a pun?
I think so.
Okay,
not a very good one. So
carry on.
We looked at a bunch of different ideas for what we could do, and ultimately, I thought it would be very interesting if the premise was, okay, what if you have like a famous pirate from Guild Wars history that is romanticized and, everyone loves this pirate, but it turns out they were kind of a jerk because they're a pirate and pirates, have to be jerks to get stuff done.
Sure.
And I thought about pirates that people have generally positive opinions about in the Guild Wars universe, and Captain Wayant and his much-loved jumping puzzle came to mind. And that was sort of the genesis of that idea.
I love that this came together like in the first this whole idea spawned in the first 2 minutes of a meeting. I appreciate so much that you committed to brainstorming anyway, just to be sure, is this the direction we want to go?
Yeah.
And what you got like halfway through before everybody's like, let's stop this farce of brainstorming.
Like Jason is very good at sussing out ideas from the room. If someone says anything, he'll like, oh, that's a good word. Let's put that word on the board and mind map it a little bit and see if there are any ideas for that. But it was like, okay, so pirate ghosts, great. Temple traps, great. Indiana Jones, cool. Like all this stuff ended up like, oh, well, all this sort of informs pirate ghosts. So maybe we should just do pirate ghosts. But yeah, it was a good meeting in that we all determined very quickly that we wanted to do something with pirate ghosts.
Fantastic. And we have pirate ghosts. So I love the one that you picked. So Wayant's background. So we got a little bit of his history.
Yeah, he he had some tall tales that he would tell you in the jumping puzzle.
I love them.
Yeah, original Captain Wayant, played by the incredible George Coe, who is sadly no longer with us. But it's the most piratey of pirates that you've ever seen. You know, he's talking like, oh, my wives and and my treasure. It was really great.
That was really good, by the way.
Well, thank you. We loved it, and everyone loves it. And so we wanted to tap into that. Like, he has all these crazy adventures. What was the first Captain Wayant adventure? It was probably him. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Hey, guys, by the way, this content is like 2 weeks
Yeah,
out now,
there is a statute of limitations, but 2 weeks is still like people are still kind of playing it, want to make sure they don't get spoiled on it. Like Captain Wayant murdering the captain of his ship when that he serves as a cabin boy on, and stealing that ship, and then forcing the player crew into becoming his new pirate crew.
Yeah. And we'll talk about Dessa here in just a little bit, but I do like I kind of went on that journey with her at the beginning, like, oh, he's got the wrong berries. It's probably an accident.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, he didn't mean to.
No, he absolutely did.
So I'll let you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about his story and what we found out in this fractal.
Yeah, so we wanted to explore the idea of the fractals, Dessa using the fractals to explore history in new and interesting ways. She's introduced as a fan of Captain Wayant. She read all his stories, read all his books, but very similarly to real world, golden age of piracy pirates, a lot of that is romanticized. All of the grand adventures that he had started off with him kind of, in a jerkish manner, killing his captain. So she sees this sort of happening over the course of the fractal. Captain Wayant, at that point, Cabin Boy Wayant, is he wants to help. He sees an opportunity and he takes it in classic pirate fashion.
Sure.
He leads a one-person coup on the crew and kills the weakened captain, and literally takes his hat and puts it on his head, and then meets you at the end of the fractal, telling you like, oh, Captain Strom isn't going to be able to make it, but with his dying words, he said, Wayant, you will be the captain now, and you've got Dessa sort of in your ear, like, that's not what happened. He actually murdered him. Don't believe him.
Poor Dessa. I like her so much, and I love that she is just aghast that this is happening.
Yeah, it's a little, she's a scientist. She probably should have had some idea that Wayant's story didn't really kick off in the most romantic of ways. But seeing it firsthand, I really feel like is an interesting way to tell that story. To actually see your hero, commit these horrible acts. It really, it gives her a new perspective on how fractals work, and how they can be used for the betterment of historical recording.
Yeah,
it was cool. It was a cool idea, and I'm glad we got to explore it. In the story, we got to reintroduce Captain Wayant as a new character. This is like young Captain Wayant with a very questionable mustache.
I didn't say that many bad things about the mustache.
Well,
I said it, but yes, it is a questionable mustache.
He's at that point, he's trying new things. Like he wants to grow the pirate beard out a little bit, but still gotta get there. It takes time. It's a commitment,
Well, that's what we were talking about that yesterday, and that's what Tracy was saying. She was like, he's just can't quite grow
it's that teenage phase where they think it looks cool that they can kind of grow it in, and it's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
That's all.
That was No,
I appreciate the attention to detail.
Yeah. So that was me like 6 months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you do it again? I think I missed it.
Oh, hang on. No, can't do it. Sorry, can't make it happen. Not on cue. Anyway.
Well, so talking about Dessa, I appreciate her de-romanticizing of her heroes. It's a word now. But I really like the way that we had her watching Wayant on her monitor, because the player is doing the fractal. We're going through and we're taking care of this treasure and we're moving things around, but you still want us to see Wayant's villain's journey.
Yeah, and that was something that we explored a little bit. Like, we had this idea of what we wanted to do with Wayant. We wanted to tell this story with him, but, you know, constantly we're thinking about, like, okay, well, you know, we don't necessarily want Wayant with you all the time.
Sure.
NPCs kind of, like, slow you down a little bit, you know, unless you design it a certain way, and we were already making really good progress on how the Fractal was going to play. And so we pitched this idea that Wayant was going to have his sort of inverse hero's journey off camera. And it's sort of like Dessa is watching 2 television channels on a monitor, and she's got you on one and she's got Wayant on the other. She's like channel flipping between the two, you know, and she's got your really cool, awesome, heroic pirate Fractal story going on here. And then she's got this really, you know, eye-opening, you know, dramatic thing, you know, like, oh no, don't feed him the berries are poisonous thing happening over here. And Dessa, you know, really is kind of powerless to you know, to manipulate that. And she's sort of telling you, it's, you know, the way I sort of wrote it was, it's like you've got a friend watching a television show and they're telling you all the stuff that's happening. And that, I think, worked out pretty well. You got a pretty good idea of what Wayant was doing. You didn't necessarily need to see him do it. And then when he showed up at the end, and he tells you, you know, oh, the captain told me with his last words that I'm in control, I'm in command. Having Dessa be able to say, like, no, I watched that episode, I know that you betrayed so-and-so, was a lot of fun. So I think I think it worked out in the end. I think it worked out okay.
I feel like it did. So were there other considerations for communicating what was going on with Wayant, or was this, okay, this is clearly how it's going to go down?
We talked a little bit about how we wanted to present it, but at the end of the day, like, you know, like, would you hear Wayant speak or anything like that? At the end of the day, we thought it was actually more interesting if you're getting an interpretation of what's going on. You're getting, like, the third-hand telephone style, like, all right, I'm watching this thing and I'm trying to explain what I'm seeing, but I'm also, like, reinterpreting it through what I think he's actually doing. So in the beginning, you know, you get that bit with the berries, and you know, it's like, oh well, it's a common mistake. Like, those berries look the same.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but then but then as time goes on, it's like, yeah, so he's just trying to murder him now. We thought that would be a more interesting approach at the end of the day.
Yeah, that I can't actually make any more excuses for this. Yeah. It's not happening.
No.
So, well, I really feel like that turned out well, and I feel like the response to that part has been pretty good. I'm
glad. I'm really glad. It was weird and different, and we haven't really tried too much stuff like it before. So I'm glad people seem to like it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a little bit about the Fractal itself and the map, because once I took out the dinosaurs at the beginning, that was a place that I just wanted to hang out. It was so beautiful.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, part of the brainstorming thing, too, is that we have the option of kind of going wherever we want. And, you know, we kind of got a sense both from internal artists and our player base that, hey, maybe something that isn't covered in sand, maybe something that isn't covered in brand would be nice to go to. So, you know, it was kind of a perfect tropical vacation kind of spot. And so, especially when you first land in the Fractal, we really wanted to play up the you know, extreme kind of
Palm
cliche,
trees.
yeah, the cliche vibe
jungle.
of the tropical island.
Yeah.
You know, we even made sure to get the little sharks in there, kind of in the distance, circling, 'cause, you know, you have to have all of the cliches. But then, yeah, we got into it, and then I started working on the maze, and Jeff Weber, our prop artist for this map, kind of saw me sticking in gargoyles, and he was like, you know, hold the phone, I've got you.
I got a thing.
And then, you know, a few days later, we all kind of turned around, and he had this amazing, you know, face that would, like, open its jaw, and he had all these weird extra gargoyles that were, like, vomiting vines, and all these, like, oddball things. And it worked out great because even at the time, we didn't really want to specify, you know, what race or whatever this maze kind of had an association with. We wanted to kind of leave it like a mystery kind of feel, which is historically a problem because most of our props have a specific, race or location they were meant
Yeah,
for. So
there's a
I
very
was
clear
so I was
association.
staring down at the Great Wall prop set or like the Dwarven ruins, and I was like, our player
It's
base
pretty
could probably even
clear.
identify it, right? So like
Yeah.
what are either of these things doing on a tropical island? So I felt like Jeff's kind of prop set kind of helped sell that. It was you
It's-
weren't really
That's
sure.
awesome.
It was like this mystery of
It's
who
different and it's new and
created
it's cool.
who created this kind of thing that you're running through.
That's so
Anyway,
cool.
Yeah. And one of the other funny things too was that the progression of just the time when you're in there, because we
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to start happy and unassuming, which kind of tied in with the story, right? Like you thought, oh, this is going to be a fun little jaunt, and the music sold it too. This will be a fun little jaunt on
and
a.
it gets super dark.
And then it gets super dark by the time you reach the end, dramatic sunset and all
Yeah.
that. But I hadn't quite thought it through because I'd had several different environment zones along the way. You pass through the maze and it gets dark and dreary and everything else. And so the initial area was disconnected from the final area, and then I realized we didn't actually shut any doors. So if any players backtracked, they'd essentially be going backwards
Travel
in
back in
time.
yeah.
And so I had to frantically kind of ping Eli and be like, can we script this environment zone to change so I can have a sunset back at the start too for the wanderers like me who would inevitably try to find, if there's a collection or whatever.
And me, I'm just like, shut the doors, shut the doors.
Yeah.
I'm like, we can't shut the doors.
Yeah, and the designers are like, we don't want to teleport anyone through if
Yeah.
they're late or,
No, I get
any
you.
of that. So I kind of had to rework the back half just to make sure that any explorers didn't get a weird experience.
Yeah,
So,
and showing the time passing with the sun, and accounting for that potential backtrack. That was like a whole new thing to try to figure out.
yeah, I mean, normally if we do any kind of time like that, like in our open world maps, we have a day and a night,
Right.
and we can kind of just do those separately, and then it's all kind of handled by the engine, like natural time transition.
Yeah.
Or thinking through it, I would have just made it all one zone and then just had Eli script it, that they've reached the pirates, go ahead and have a sunset, right? But as you said, we don't normally do a
Yeah, this
transition
is-
like that, so I hadn't really thought about it because any time that we have a time transition, it's almost always handled just kind of by the engine.
Yeah, we very rarely do like plot weather or
Well, and if we do weather changes, it's usually on that day or night cycle. So it's not something that
it's hard coded into the thing.
coded,
Yeah.
or that you would expect players to reliably see, within a 15-minute window, which is
Yeah.
kind of what most fractals are kind of geared around, like the 10-15 minutes. So like making sure that they'd be able to see that light transition, even if they're playing at
Yeah.
3 a.m. or whatever.
Something that I actually want to point to on that, this speaks back to a guild chat that we had a couple weeks back where we talked about one of the things that we do on Guild Wars 2 is constantly trying to make it better. See, what can we do that's new? What can we do that's a little bit better? How can we make this cooler? And that's just, it's a good example of, all right, we want to do this thing and we want to account for the cool environment effects that we want. How can we make that work?
And the explorers too. That's what I
Yeah.
tend to do in the game is, all the people who run around on the edge of the map and see how high they can fly or where the, if there's any caves hidden anywhere. And
Tracy is your people.
I'm your people, and begrudgingly so, because I have the two sides of me. I have my player side who's like, wouldn't it be cool if, and then my internal artist side who's like, oh, but it's gonna be such a hassle. Right? It's like every time I put in an invisible wall to like block the edge of a map from somebody, like my player self is screaming. I'm like, but I want to see, the pretty clouds in the distance. And then my other side, it's like, yeah, but I don't want to put back facing on all those props. It's like which side wins out.
Do we have waterfall? Is there a waterfall in the map somewhere for this one for Siren's Reef? I don't. I don't
I'm
think there
notorious
is.
for putting in waterfalls, but I don't believe so.
'Cause you seem like the kind of artist who would put caves behind waterfalls. That's like
pet
pet peeve of mine.
I am notorious for two things that sometimes drive people nuts: waterfalls and giant spiral staircases.
Okay.
And that's why you saw a lot of that in the previous raid. So that's
okay.
my fault.
Yeah, interesting. Did you work on Cormier's library?
I was
that
just thinking
that
of
was me
that.
too.
Yep.
Hey!
That is all spiral
so
staircases
that's just
and
it.
waterfalls.
It's like anytime you see,
It's so beautiful.
It is, and it's all like
And
it's
now,
just spiral staircases
and now
and
you know
waterfalls.
how to identify me.
That's awesome.
All right.
Even
And Kesho.
well, even the
Which
Kesho.
was Sand Falls
Sand
and
Falls.
a really annoying spiral jumping
And
puzzle.
fun fact, even Domain of the Lost has a waterfall if you look carefully.
Yeah. Oh, and the raid, of course. The Mithrite Gambit also had a lot of waterfalls
yeah.
and
And-
the
and-
curved staircases
Yep.
leading up to
Yep.
the forge.
Yep.
Your secret's out.
So
Yeah.
that's
I
your
know, they're
hallmark.
gonna know now. Well, I have another hallmark too that a few people know.
What is it?
I tend to hide quail. So there's a little tiny quail prop that designers,
ringing a bell.
for some reason, designers can't use it. I don't know why. Like, it's
Huh.
not hooked up as an actual creature, so it can't be used as just an ambient right now.
Mhm.
But it has all the regular, animation loops that you'd expect. And so it's like, oh, it's mine now. Because, Tirza had her little swinging boy, and, various artists have things that they do
Yeah.
to kind of say, hey, I spend a significant portion of time on this map. And so, yeah, go find the little quail. They're
find
out
the
there.
My goodness.
Even Cormor's Library has a little quail.
Ooh.
What? There's a quail
Oh,
in there?
man.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I have to go find it.
Yeah, yeah, and
Oh, that's
there's one in the
adorable.
Fractal.
Oh, boy.
And yeah,
So
I
it's-
don't put them in all of them when it doesn't quite thematically make sense. I couldn't be bothered to make a ghost quail for the Domain of the Lost, but some
Next
of the
piece
other
of
ones.
content I work
Oh,
on.
now
when to say,
make a ghost
yeah,
quail.
ghost quail.
Yeah.
It's not.
Alright,
this
We're not
part,
doing
it's
that. We're not doing that. The lore ramifications
Spoilers.
are too insane.
So, but what this tells me, you said it's not an ambient, and that means it can't be killed.
Correct.
So it's
You
safe.
can't kill my
Yay.
little quail. He's safe
Immortal quail.
forever. He's safe
Immortal
forever.
quail?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know it does drive
I
some
dig
players nuts. They're like, why do these cranes, why do these cats not have, the little health indicators? Why can't I interact with them? And that's because the environment artists put them in, not the designers. So they're essentially props
it.
that just happen to move.
I love it.
And it's kind of easier in a way because we know then that they're not going to path some weird way. Because especially if a lot of the ambient creatures, they have little walking paths and loops and stuff. And mainly when we put something in there, it's because we don't want it to walk off a ledge or something. Like we tend to put them kind of, in corners. Like the cats, we'll put them on a little rug or something, and we don't necessarily want them.
Like a real cat doesn't want to leave the leave the little circle.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I want to, we'll loop back to this later about things that are hidden in the map.
Oh,
but
yes.
Yes, we will
there are
talk
more
about that in a
things
little
that
bit.
are hidden.
I do want to talk about, you mentioned Indiana Jones and all of these traps and everything, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about those because those were mostly fun, and you guys were kind of laughing at me yesterday because when I played through this Fractal, I went in and I was like, okay, I don't have a lot of time. I will just solo this really quickly. So that was interesting, but I learned a lot from you about how exactly I was supposed to move this treasure around.
Yeah, we really wanted to make sure that players got a sense of community, working with each other, teamwork to get through the Fractal. So we put in two very important mechanics to make sure that players will be able to do this. The first one that you'll encounter is, of course, the swivel-mounted spectral artillery, or ghost cannons.
Ghost cannons. Fire the ghost cannons.
And that's part of the idea that some players need to. Sometimes players get really annoyed when we take their skills away from them. They like to be able to play with their skills, their builds. Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
We obviously like to play with our skills and our builds. But sometimes it's fun to add in a little mechanic that needs special handling. So in this case, for instance, for the skeleton boss, you need to man the ghost cannon to destroy the mines that he places on the ground, while the other members of your team deal with the boss itself. And then the other way we did that is with the treasure maze, we created a game of hot potato, where you would throw the chest from person to person. And if you catch it, you get a buff that actually allows you to move faster for a little bit longer, so that way we could encourage players to want to toss and catch between themselves for a smoother and faster Fractal experience.
That's awesome. And there are some less efficient ways you can do it.
Yes.
You could not do that.
Or have you considered
the
not?
slow, painful walk.
Yes, and that was exactly that was the experience I had. It was a good time. I would throw it and then like run after it, and I would, oh well, there's still 16 seconds left. Whatever, I'll pick it up and throw it again. Oh look, now I have another layer of pain.
It's like the designers for like baseball, like one person's like, all right, I'm going to try this myself. It's like I kind of need more people out there to make this work. Okay, you know what? Have some fun. Just
Yes.
So yeah,
you can.
You can theoretically.
I don't personally recommend it.
Yeah. No. There a lot of that teamwork. A lot of those teamwork mechanics. I think the designers did a fantastic job of encouraging players to pass it between each other, between one another, encouraging larger groups by having the cap on how many times you could catch the thing.
Yeah.
So I can't exactly remember how that works, but it does. It's there and it does something.
Travis can tell us.
Yes, Travis can tell us.
So basically, every time you catch it, it will apply agony to you if you're on the higher levels, and it will also do a little bit of damage to you, except the third time you catch it. After you catch it the third time, it applies several stacks of agony to you and downs you instantly. So you can only catch it. You can catch it about 3 times if you have the right agony resistance. But if you try to catch it any more than that, you die instantly.
It's a very specific pirate curse on this treasure. It's very mechanically fair, but also difficult to contend with.
So that's actually a question I had. How did you figure out, okay, let's make this challenging. Let's encourage the group interaction that we want to encourage without making this completely maddening?
So the most of it
that feels like a fine line to walk.
Yes, it was a very fine line to walk. Super fine line to walk. Yes, playtests. We would. 3 is always a good number. Designers like to design around 3. It's a good number. Yeah. So
it's 1, 3, and 5. Those are good numbers. 10 also a good number.
Stick around there. So
good design numbers.
And then
I said just random numbers.
No. Okay. Like designy numbers. Like you can have 1 of something, you can have 3 of something, you can have 5 of something, you can have 10 of something, but nothing else.
At that point, you got to start going into the hundreds, and thousands, and millions. So yeah, we basically did a bunch of play tests where we would just go in as players would, play through it, and toss it, and see like how well we could get it through it. We did have an internal testing group that kind of put us to shame because they could do it like that. They just zip right through, tossing to one another, 5 people, just right down a line, start the next one and go. And, it took us anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes just to clear the maze. We'd always spawn all of the ads, have to kill them.
It was so bad.
It's bad.
We'd toss them into places where the ads would catch it and start running it back to the spawn
point. Oh, yeah,
because
they do that if they catch it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's super fun.
We always get embarrassed pretty badly, like compared to how well we can play the content versus when it gets released. So.
Yeah.
I have some curiosity about the playtest group that I want to know later who that is so I can play with them.
Well, it's just the Raids Fractals group.
Oh, it's that? Okay.
Yeah. We'll just ping Kai and he'll invite you to it.
I'm embarrassed to play with them. No, I'm not good enough. No,
it's like us, it's just us. None of us are
particularly great.
Jeff will run some weird like healer build that is so off meta to be comical. And
my Hollow Smith hits things and dies a lot.
Hey, that's me.
Yep.
Cool.
I know.
Awesome.
I mean, my Necro's all right, but it usually means that I'm the one who gets to mop up all of the ads that get erroneously spawned. So
I love how our guild chat turned into we're really bad at.
Are you having fun?
Hey.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You're doing it
Most
right.
of my group beat the raid during Extra Life. I'll have
That's
you know.
right.
It took us a while, but we did it.
But you did it. That was awesome. All right, so that's kind of how just running through it a ton.
Yeah.
And ignoring the group that did it super fast.
Yeah, like the end in early versions of the design, the end siege on the captain pirate captain's ship. Originally we had both sides. So instead of defending first from the south and then from the north and then just holding out, you had to get a treasure from the south, but both the north and the south were attacking you. And then you had to go to the north, but the north and south were attacking you. And then you had to go get a treasure from the west, but the north and south and west were attacking you.
Why?
Sounded fun on paper.
Sounded fun on paper, and then
Did it though?
there were, and it made sense. There were 4 swivel-mounted spectral artillery, and then 1 chest. So you would have 4 people defending the cannon, and then
It
1
does
person
make
to go
sense.
get the chest.
It does make sense. I'm just like, it sounds like it hurts so bad.
we realized pretty early on that wasn't gonna.
Yeah.
That was a little much.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, a little much.
I do want to note too, you mentioned the ads, and I actually had fun, and maybe I'm just weird, but I actually had fun dodging those little eyes on the floor. And
Yeah, they've got there's it's pulsing, so you can, if you're really good at your timing, you can kind of clip the edge of one and not set it off, which feels really good because you feel very stealthy about it.
really?
But the pulse is really short, so like if you try to like walk like, you know, more than a
This is like a dodging thing.
yeah.
Yes.
If you try to walk like across, say, a third of it, no, you're gonna set that off.
That's fair. And then you have to kill things.
Yes.
All right. Well, we have some questions. I want to run down the line first and have you guys talk a little bit about what was your absolute favorite thing about bringing this Fractal to life?
Oh gosh, I really loved writing Dessa in a way where she's really uncomfortable with she knows that like pirate ghosts are kind of an absurd, like pirate curses are kind of an absurd thing. So a lot of her dialogue is her trying to recontextualize various pirate tropes.
Sure.
So, you know, pirate curse, she's not comfortable calling it a pirate curse. That's not a very scientific thing. What if it was a persistent, a negative, persistent magical aura instead?
I thought that was fantastic. I loved that.
Yeah. Same with like swivel-mounted spectral artillery, and then she tries to say it, and he's like, ghost cannons. We call them ghost cannons. Fine, fire the ghost cannons. And, you know, just the whole story is her kind of like loosening up a little bit about all this stuff and that was bringing that, like watching that go through the process and then having it recorded and listening to the actual voice acting was awesome. So that was definitely one of my favorite parts.
It's fun. Every time I hear swivel-mounted spectral artillery, I hear her in my head yelling, "Ghost cannons!" She's just done. So, how about you, Tracy?
Well, for me, it was almost a break because a lot of the things I'd been working on were just enormous building like constructs. You know, it's like, as you brought up, it's like I did Premier's Library, and then I was doing like what does the Mystic Forge look like? You know, it's like these huge kind of, you know, incredibly unique but almost
Big old monolithic buildings.
yeah, there were monolithic buildings, and there were things that had to be almost like over the top in how amazing they were, just because there were locations that people either had been really waiting desperately to see, or they were literally like of godly proportion, you know, like these things. And so then to be told, oh, just make a fun tropical island was like, oh yes, okay, whew.
That
You know,
is
I don't have to
amazing.
come up with something like brand new, you know,
Yeah.
I can use fun references. But I think from development, my personal favorite thing was we were doing playtests, and poor Anthony.
Yes!
You know, I was gonna
Please
bring
tell the
this-
Pocket Raptor story.
Yeah, poor Anthony, one of our designers, I don't think had encountered a whole lot of pocket raptors before, and he made the erroneous move of going ahead alone,
Oh
and
no.
just got swarmed.
Don't
and
split
just
the
w-
group.
Just went down instantly. You know, he wasn't prepared for the danger that lay
yeah.
ahead. You know, and so I proceeded in horrible, you know, fashion to
Because you're a
needle
good friend.
to needle him
As
for,
one does.
you know, all the following play tests of, you know, oh, watch out for the pocket raptors, Anthony, they're there. And so I went ahead, you know, when it finally went live and gave him the little pocket raptor mini
I
to
love that.
commemorate
That's fantastic.
all of his pocket raptor traumas. But I gave him a fair amount of grief.
Everyone has pocket raptor. Bad pocket
Pocket
raptor.
raptor
memories.
traumas.
So for all of you people that would rather fight 50 duck-sized horses, remember pocket raptors.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm kind of glad too that we, even in the trailer, I think there was a little part where you
Yes.
saw the maze mouth open and the little pocket raptors came out.
And there's a little nest in there, right?
There's little nests along kind of that what I like to refer to as pocket raptor alley, 'cause I wanted to kind of justify their presence. I mean, I
Pocket
think they're
raptor name.
adorable, but I'm also a necromane, so they've never been a huge threat to me.
I think
so
they're super cute, and I love their squeaks.
I love them, but it's also good to know that they're there before you step
Yeah.
into them.
All right, so I have a secondary question for you. Is there anything else hidden on the map?
There is something hidden in that map. I was almost wondering if Wooden Potatoes would find it, because I wanted to see like his take. I wanted to see his take on what it would imply.
Has anybody found it yet?
I don't know. I didn't.
They're keeping it to themselves if they found it.
Nobody pinged me if they were watching, Teapot or any of our regulars and said, oh, they looked in the right spot.
Okay, so tell us what it is.
There's a Karka hatchling hiding somewhere in that map. And, I had to actually go ahead and ask our lore folks if it was okay, that, fractals can always kind of imply differences anyway.
It's a matter of perspective.
Yeah, in the storyline, this could just be one version, but I thought it was kind of funny to imply that, hey, maybe Wayant was, part of a Kirkra invasion problem. It's like his fault that they traveled off this island on the South Sun or wherever.
It's not the definitive source, but
Canucks over there going, "I told you."
yeah, right. And so I thought it was funny to hide a hatchling somewhere on that island, but.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and I guess in general, kind of a hidden thing too is look at your mini map, because
that's right. The shape of the island.
The shape of the island.
Oh yeah.
I had a lot of fun with it because we weren't necessarily going to use a whole lot of space. Like as soon as you go into mazes, it's actually pretty compact, and so it was kind of like, hey, what could I do with the rest of this?
So check your mini map, you guys. See if it resembles anything.
Yep.
Well, how about you, Travis?
I have to say that probably my favorite thing about this was how quick it was to test. Our the Fractals designer Eli, the Fractal lead, he did an amazing job with the first pass of this. Everything worked really nicely together. There weren't a whole lot of issues as far as it was all pretty simple scripting. We ran into a couple of issues where you could duplicate chests, or the curse wouldn't be removed, or
in proper curse fashion.
In proper curse
fashion. I had that curse on me for a long time.
Oh no, seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah, I basically had to take on the boss at one point, just not being able to get rid of my curse.
And then, of course, there was the time when if more than one person was standing inside the mines for the skeleton boss at the start, it would crash the entire fractal and everyone that was in it.
That's bad. That's a bad thing.
That was bad.
We don't want that to happen.
We don't want that. That's bad.
So, I mean, other than those, those were pretty simple. That was about all that we really ran into as far as issues, which was really good because I was testing Mythra Gambit at the time as well. So.
Oh my gosh. So you were busy.
I caused no problems in that map. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, that's awesome. So, do you guys want to grab a couple questions?
Let's see. Where in the world is Siren's Reef? Close to Ore, Maguma? We don't specify, but it's a tropical island, and it's out there somewhere. It's a real place. We don't know when and where this story takes place, other than because when you first meet Captain Wayant, he's a ghost already, so he's been dead for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think we wanted to leave it open. That's part of the reason of kind of changing up even the maze architecture, just to leave it kind of wherever you want it to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see.
So the real location is in your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw a little dart at the Tyrian map.
Yeah.
I see a question that I had too.
Well,
so.
Go for it. Which one?
That first one?
Is Arabella Crow related to the pirate oracle Alastia? I keep wanting to pronounce TIA's Alasha. Alastia Crow from the Human Personal Story, which she always intended to be the final boss of the Fractal, or were there other candidates for that role?
Thank you, Gossage.
Hey, funny development story.
Yay!
To answer the question, no, not related. But the original character's name was Arabella Craven. And because for some reason in my head I'd forgotten that Craven meant cowardly.
Oh no! I was rude.
I was like Craven. That's a cool pirate name. But then it was actually I'd put it in, and then we did a quick play test, and then Mike Z actually was like, "You do realize that Craven's not a great pirate name, right?" I was like, darn, he's absolutely right.
That's a name that someone definitely gave her.
Half of us had different, we all.
Yeah, everyone kind of turned to me, was like shrugged, and was like, hey, I'm just the writer on this thing.
Half of us thought the word meant something slightly different.
Yes, exactly. So ultimately, I sort of looked at it and did a little like just word association, like okay, so it was originally Craven, and then I was like, oh, Raven, let's find a different like spooky,
Sure.
and then that became Crow, and so yeah, Arabella Crow.
That's
it
awesome.
seemed like a good pirate name. So
I like it.
Yeah,
But no, not related.
but no, not related. Happy coincidence is all.
All right. Cool.
Let me see. Are you guys working on a series of fractals that have an overarching story like Shattered Chaos and Nightmare?
So many of these questions. are just like, tell us about the future.
Yeah, tell us about it.
We
Yeah,
can't do that necessarily.
yeah, we obviously we're not in the habit of talking about future content, but the last fractal I worked on was the Deepstone fractal, and that is not lore related necessarily to the Siren's Reef fractal. Which is not related to the Mithrite Gambit raid. So, yeah, these are kind of standalone stories that explore parts of the Guild Wars universe that we have wanted to explore, and that's really it.
Cool.
Oh, Tracy, what's that top one there? That's
I mean.
Oh, so this is the.
So yeah, the question is, in the maze, whenever they look down from the top, it gets all black and they can't see anything.
That sounds intentional.
It is kind of intentional, actually, because if you look up when you're on the ground, you can see it's all kind of smoky.
Oh,
It's like if you go
interesting.
into like some enclosed areas and they've been enclosed for a while, it's kind of yeah. I mean, I don't like that you can't that it completely blinds you. Zoom your camera in a little bit. Like partial bug, yet I definitely had scripted that environment zone to kind of get smokier and darker as you got up towards the ceiling, just to kind of keep that kind of enclosed, almost claustrophobic feel while you're in there.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
Awesome.
so yes and no.
Okay, that's fair.
So I can go ahead and field the future of fractals question, kind of.
Okay.
I'm fascinated now.
I'm very interested in what this answer will
Are
be.
you okay?
We didn't rehearse this.
That's what questions do. You can't prep for questions. That's why they're so fun.
Okay.
One person was asking that they're grateful for new fractals, but they want to know if they'll ever get reworks of old fractals. And I can say that we have done reworks of old fractals in the past, and I cannot not say that we won't do them in the future.
Hold on. All right.
Well, and we reworked some instabilities too.
Yeah, we've reworked instabilities.
Yeah.
That went out with this,
Yeah.
so I can't say that we won't, and I can't say that we will.
Yeah,
But
clearly the team is always looking at like how do we improve, what we
Yeah.
have too. So if we feel like something isn't working for players, we'll definitely be bringing it up and be like, okay, is there a way, we can fit this into our timeline, if there's a pain point,
Sure. That makes sense.
so I can say, don't give up hope.
Do you have any other historical fractals that you're working on? And I suppose I'll dovetail this into the next question, which is, can we ever find the real Dessa and Ark? That's sort of, I'm going to wrap this up into, we don't like talking about unreleased future stuff,
And
spoiling stuff. And
Technically, aren't all fractals historical?
technically, yes.
or future. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's the
Amorphous
mists. The mists
space-time.
are a strange,
amorphous
a
space-time.
strange place. We like to use fractals as a tool to explore areas of Tyria that we might not normally explore in the main series content. So that said, we're not necessarily approaching these things from, let's do a historical fractal. It's like, what's a cool thing that we haven't done yet?
Yeah.
So that's the general sort of mindset that we're in when we do these things.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. I think we actually got
Ran out
everything.
of questions?
Yeah. If there are any
awesome.
more questions,
Quick.
please
You have-
quickly
You
You
ask
have
them.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
Go.
I did like I like seeing when people are interested in Dessa because I have this little affection and sympathy for her ever since that one where she tried to leave and got popped back and just broke my heart.
Yeah.
So now I'm just like I want to take care of her and I want her to be happy and content.
Yeah. Having worked on both raids and fractals, it always takes me a second to parse Glenna and Dessa.
Yes, I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah, because they both have the double letter, and
Yeah.
I keep like oh yeah, it's the one, like the one in the fractals is the one is the sword with the double letters. Wait, they both have double letters. Shit. what I'm supposed to do.
Well, but so Glenna, she's the crabby one. She's the sassy one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and Dessa is very, very much the more down-to-earth, let's get this done.
Yes. I adore
Very
them
scientifically
both.
minded. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So they're both very fun to write in their own way. It's a very different character, and I very much enjoyed writing for both of them.
Yeah, I like them. All right. On that note, I will tell you all thank you very much for coming to talk about Siren's Reef. Thank you. This has been a really fun Fractal. I'm liking this one a lot. It's been a good time. So, and I will tell you all thank you very much for spending some time with us and talking with us about Siren's Reef and asking some really good questions.
Yeah, those were great questions. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you all. We will see you next Friday. Bye.
Bye. Bye.